all here today. I lead enterprise sales here at Meta globally, and I'm focused on this transformation with all of you. And so one of the things that I came to this amazing company to do very recently after time at SAP, AWS, Microsoft, and Cisco is focusing on how we build for the future and think about you as enterprises and where you'd like to go. And so today, I know many of you are looking at AI as a land of opportunity, but also a point of a little bit of confusion, too. What do you do first? What are the priorities? Where do you focus first externally? Where do you focus first internally? And these are all things that I know are on all of your minds. And it's interesting because when I look back over the last 30 years that I've been focusing on enterprises and technology, I remember moments of time. So I remember the move to the cloud. Who remembers the move to the cloud in this room? There's a few of us. I remember that digital transformation era that meant something different to every person. And now here we are in this AI transformation point. And it's an incredible moment of opportunity for all of us. And I think this is also a chance in forums like this to look to the left and look to the right and learn from others around you. But today, we have an amazing opportunity for all of you to spend a few minutes with us learning from somebody who's going to actually take us through this journey. And so I'd like to bring to the stage Scott Brinker. Scott's VP of Platform Ecosystem at HubSpot, and I want to make sure I get this just right. Ad Age called him the godfather of MarTech. Please join me in welcoming Scott to the stage.
Hello, enterprise friends at Conversations. You having a great day so far? Yes? Okay, good, good, good. So thank you for that introduction, Jen. That was very nice. I don't know about this whole godfather of MarTech thing. It feels like maybe I should A/B test an offer they can't refuse. So I've been analyzing and also working as an operator at the intersection of marketing and technology for about 2 decades at this point. One of the projects I started 15 years ago was trying to map out all of the different marketing technologies that were out there. And in 2011, there were a lot. There was like 150 different major platforms out there that people were using. And then the next year, it doubled. And then a couple years after that, doubled and doubled again. And as we kept tracking this crazy marketing technology landscape, it grew over 15 years, 100x, from around 150 solutions to over 15,000. So those of you in enterprise working with marketing technology stacks, I feel your pain. Here, I can zoom in to make that a little bit more readable. I'll give a pound to anyone who can see the logo in that third category on the left, first row. All right, maybe not. This growth has been incredible. Now, we all know that marketing has gone through so much tremendous change over these 15 years. I know you feel it, and it's been accelerating, right? But if you were actually asked to quantify how much marketing has changed, what is the answer? Massive amount, a lot. Well, I would humbly propose to you that crazy growth in the marketing technology landscape is one artifact that gives us a sense of just how much change we've been navigating together. And so the number is like 10,236.7%. So when somebody asks you how much marketing has changed over the past decade and a half, give them that number, say it with confidence. Now, these past few years have seen a whole new generation of products and solutions appear in our world around generative AI. And although the popular, or maybe unpopular narrative over the past several months has been this idea of the SaaS-pocalypse, that, okay, AI is just entirely replacing existing SaaS solutions. The reality is that's not actually what's happening. Don't get me wrong, there are changes that are constantly happening in the MarTech stack. But when we surveyed enterprise leaders here at the end of last year, we saw that actually the majority of the use cases in AI were augmenting on top of their existing systems or creating things that weren't even possible before. Now, part of this is when you think of that crazy MarTech landscape, the way I've shown it with all those equally unreadable microdots, that's actually not a good representation of the industry. A better representation would be something like this, where if you organize those companies based on their scale, their market share, their revenues, you would get a long-tail distribution, where there's a couple dozen companies that are in the head of that tail, hundreds of really category leaders in the torso, and then just thousands and thousands of small companies, some who aspire, startups who aspire to become the next generation of leaders, but also incredible solutions built around particular verticals within certain regions around the world, software built for particular ecosystems. But the truth is, for that crazy landscape of thousands of commercial MarTech solutions out there, it is being dwarfed by what we've come to call the hypertail of increasingly custom-built software that augments all of those commercial platforms. Now, this has been happening for a while, but it's gained incredible acceleration, particularly over the past year, 2 years, with AI coding and something that we've colloquially come to call vibe coding. This vibe coding thing, I admit, it's kind of a weird-sounding phrase, and it didn't even exist until like February of last year when Andrej Karpathy, who's sort of one of those AI voices out there, on a X post, it said, "Hey, there's this new kind of coding I call vibe coding." I have to say this in the voice I imagine it, where you just fully give into the vibes, and embrace the exponentials, and forget that the code even exists. Just coincidentally, marijuana is apparently legal in California, but no association with that. You know, growing up in the 80s, I often thought of like, oh yeah, I'd heard about, the 60s, and countercultural movements and, the summer of love. All right, I didn't get to participate in any of that, but I feel like last summer, it kind of became the summer of vibes. Everybody was talking about vibe this, vibe that. And I thought, while we're here together, maybe I could actually just do a little translation, because some of these vibe things we're hearing about, they've kind of been with us for a while. For instance, I would just suggest that vibe coding is the next generation of kind of what we've been pursuing for a while here with no-code and low-code capabilities. People occasionally talk about vibe marketing. Seems like the next generation of what we used to call growth hacking. Vibe selling, I've heard this one, which to me, this is what selling has always been. It's been the hustle culture. You gotta tune into those vibes. Now, I've not heard vibe finance. I'm sure it's coming. And this is probably what we used to call creative accounting, or as the authorities refer to it, fraud. So just keep that in mind. And then pretty much vibe anything, that's kind of what we used to call shadow IT. All right, so to get serious for a moment though, one of the things that differentiates this vibe coding movement is the number of people that it is empowering to be able to build things. And I don't see vibe coding as a way in which non-engineers are in any way replacing the jobs of professional software engineers. You should not be vibe coding your own CRM. But there's a whole set of things that actually make a great sense for vibe coding. When we start looking at apps and agents and automations that are relatively simple, or are only used for internal purposes, maybe just with your small team, maybe with only you as an individual to optimize your workflow. Things that might have a relatively short lifespan. Oh, well, let's create this agent for this particular event that we're running, this particular promotion, and then afterwards we don't need it anymore. There's a wide range of applications that have different risk profiles, a lot having to do what sort of data they are or are not allowed to work with. And perhaps even most importantly is this idea that vibe coding lets us experiment with ambiguity in a way that was very hard before. So I'm a recovering software engineer, and the decades of the relationship between software engineering and business has always had its challenge where business users asking developers to build something, and there's a translation process that happens there, and then it gets built, and the business user sees it, and they're like, okay, now that I've seen it, actually I need something a little bit different. And that iteration goes on, sometimes until somebody sets their hair on fire. Now, what's wild about vibe coding is this becomes a mechanism for business users to also be able to start to prototype their ideas and work through that ambiguity before handing things over to a professional engineer. And the thing that gets me so excited about this, despite the somewhat silly name, is the fact that all these things on the left, these are things that we traditionally did not build software for, because it just wasn't worth having professional engineers spend their effort doing that. This unlocks so many exciting possibilities. And it's not just about coding. It's about creative production, it's about data analysis, that we're moving more and more from things that were purely served by centralized services to things that are increasingly decentralized self-service capabilities in the enterprise. And this has many benefits. The most obvious one, of course, is speed. That if you can self-service something, you don't have to file a ticket and wait in a queue. This also expands the bandwidth of things we're able to do, because it's not being bottlenecked through a single centralized group. It becomes a wide and parallel bandwidth. But two of the other benefits that get me even more excited, part of it is this thing about tapping into wider creativity. We're empowering more people to be able to bring their ideas to life, coming from very different, diverse points of view. This is where innovation really starts to grow. And maybe the most important, we know we are going through this transformation that is requiring all of us to continually learn new skills. And as much as I'm excited you are here with me today, we don't learn just by listening or watching or reading. We learn by doing, getting hands-on. And the more decentralized self-service capabilities we provide, the more we really enable people to do that. One of my heroes is a two-time Nobel Prize winner, Linus Pauling. He won his first Nobel Prize in chemistry, and then later in life, a Nobel Peace Prize. And he was renowned for just being so prolific in coming up with new discoveries and ideas. And there was a journalist who had interviewed him once, and asked, how do you do this? How do you keep coming up with so many great ideas? And his answer was, to have a great idea, you just have to have a lot of ideas. This is what is so exciting about this age that we're moving into here, is it's allowing us to experiment and try so many new ideas, because it's through that process of experimentation that we discover the ones that are really breakthrough hits. Now, we've been talking a lot about agents here at Conversations, so let's talk a little bit more. You can tell one of my hobbies is putting little logos on slides. Everybody needs a hobby. So last year, all this talk about agents, I tried to provide a little bit of a landscape of what are the different kinds of agents we're talking about. And to me, they fell into three categories. Agents for marketers, which a lot of MarTech companies, these are the first set of agents they provided to help you as a marketer do your job in the production and the analysis and the execution of marketing. There are then agents for customers. And these are agents that we, as the business owners, control, but they're customer-facing. What you're seeing with, here at Conversations, these agentic platforms to allow you to engage and serve customers. Incredible innovation happening here. But then there's also this third category that I call agents of customers. And it's a little bit different than agents for customers, because we as the business owners don't really control these. These are agents that are increasingly under the control of our customers. So we'll talk a little bit about each one of these. The main thing I want to pass along to you when we talk about agents for marketers, I mentioned this with some of the data at the beginning, is this is not a wholesale rip and replace of your existing marketing technology infrastructure. In fact, a lot of your existing marketing technology infrastructure is exactly what you need to be able to take advantage of this new technology that's out here. And since I know I'm with my enterprise friends here, I'll show you a perhaps slightly complicated view conceptually of a MarTech stack. And there's kind of three layers. There's the data layer. You know, you might have some sort of cloud data warehouse or lakehouse underneath all of that, but you have your systems of record, your CRM, your digital asset management platforms, your ERPs. On top of that, we have built over the years a number of what we would call systems of engagement in marketing automation and consumer engagement, digital experience platforms. I humbly suggest these are changing from being systems of engagement to, I'd reframe them as systems of context, because they're a way of actually providing contextual information to humans, both as our employees, our customers, but also agents interacting in between. And most of what we see with agents actually wrap around that existing MarTech stack. You saw it in the presentations yesterday of these connectors that allow you to integrate very easily with your existing systems. There's also this idea of our customers having agents of their own. There was a little bit of a discussion about that this morning. I just put a little footnote there that in a very real sense, this becomes a part of our MarTech stack that we want to think about as well, too. And because the MarTech industry is great at three-letter acronyms, I have a decoder ring that translates them all. So it's this kind of shift where for MarTech for years, we really thought about buying applications. And what's exciting right now is commercial MarTech is really starting to look more like infrastructure upon which we're able to build our own custom agents and apps and workflows. Now, when we talk about agents for customers, the thing I always like to keep in mind is this 2x2. Is it efficient for the company, or is it efficient for the customer? Obviously, we want things that are both. I suspect a number of you have seen certain cases in the business where they were efficient for neither. There are, interestingly, still times where things might not be efficient for the company in a particular interaction, but it's worth making that investment to develop the loyalty and the love and the advocacy with customers. The thing we always want to be super careful about is that upper left quadrant, where we can do things that automate and create efficiencies for the company, but don't necessarily make things better for the customer. And this is where this generation of agentic technology gets me really excited, because it is about creating conversations that truly serve and delight the customer, not just extend the automation for our business. You know, it's not just about improving marketing, which is what a lot of those agents on the left do. It's about being able to take advantage of this opportunity to disrupt marketing through new channels, through new services, through new kinds of experiences. Now, in that category, one of the things we've heard a lot about over this past couple of years is a shift from search engine optimization to AEO, GEO, AI engine optimization. Lots of things happening here. But what really comes down to is we more than ever want to think about the range of places where we can be discovered and have discovery-oriented conversations with our prospects and customers. All right, one last thing. I would humbly suggest, and we've already heard this here today, that the word of the year in 2026, I know we're just in June, but this is the word of the year. It's context. Because this is what we're talking about, right? It's, context windows for AI agents. It's context graphs inside our organization. I want to give you a way of thinking about context, though, that I think is the most relevant, which is to think of context through three lenses. There's the context for our customer, which actually, as marketers, is really the context we spend most of our time thinking about. What are their goals, their intent, their preferences, jobs to be done? We have to overlay that, though, with the company's context. The goals, the strategies, the knowledge, the processes, the capabilities, the governance, and actually getting alignment between the customer context and the company's context this is not easy. But what makes it more challenging is this third lens of our systems context. This is so for all that incredible context for customers and companies, how much of it is actually actionable inside our software and systems? This is the mission we are pursuing. And a lot of what you hear the phrase context engineering for is this idea of saying, okay, as we understand the context of the customer, how do we make sure we're not only able to capture that in systems, but we're able to act on it in the moment where that context is relevant. But as we do that, I just want to make sure this isn't a technical exercise. Don't get me wrong, there's some technical work to be done. What this really comes down to is this opportunity to rethink the value engineering of how do we create better experiences for those customers? How do we understand for their context what we can deliver that's going to be most valuable? Because if we have that very clearly in our head, and we're then able to align our context engineering work in service of that, that intersection is what I would propose to you should be the golden context. And I say that as a bit of a nod to the classic golden record, that we often pursued in CRM. Golden context is harder, because it's not just about a static record. It's about that dynamic experience and how it's created. And no illusions, this is going to take some work. For a lot of companies, the overlap in that Venn diagram is less than perfect. But this is the mission, And the speaker earlier this morning talked about the future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed. This is the competitive advantage opportunity. How do you create greater overlap and alignment across customer context, company context, and systems context? Now, I know normally when these ambitious projects are presented, there's always a good model for we'll crawl, walk, run. And having been in technology for a number of decades, I've seen a lot of these models. I've also seen sort of how it tends to actually play out in practice, where it's crawl, teeter, stumble, maybe somersault, possibly injure yourself, need to take a rest. All kidding aside, this is, sort of in that nod to Linus Pauling, a moment of experimentation and learning. This future isn't fully written. There isn't the single playbook out there. But for those of us who are willing to lean into this, to discover, to experiment, to get the future to arrive a little bit distributed our way before the rest of our competitors, it's a phenomenal opportunity. So, very excited to be here with you today, and I guess let me invite Jen back to the stage.
Thank you all for spending the time focusing on this with us today. I think that as I listened to what you were talking about, and I was back there with my ear to the curtain listening to every single word, I heard that word context quite a bit. And what a magical moment in time right now where customers can take us where they want to go. They can bring us to the conversational path that they want to meet us on. And I know you talked quite a bit about composable architecture, you talked quite a bit about AI readiness, and I think you've armed people for the future a bit. But we feel like we have too with what we announced yesterday and today. So the Meta Business Agent platform, I hope, is something that you'll take with you moving forward as a tool to help you drive forward those conversations with your customers and differentiate yourselves in the marketplace. But with that, we have a few more moments with you. So can I take you for some Q&A?
I would be delighted.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. And I know in the audience, you've heard of something called WhatsApp, right? So with that, here's a QR code. We would love to see your questions. I have my phone here ready to take a look at them. And we have some that have come in the meantime from some of you in the audience. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you a few to get started.
Terrific.
Okay, perfect. So the first one, and I have to tell you, of all of the questions that I know we were taking a look at the topics for, this one specifically was most interesting to me. And I think you touched on it at a high level, but we're going to go deeper now. Are you ready?
Okay, great.
Okay, so you touched on the AI agents orchestrating customer relationships. And I'm spending a lot of time right now helping our enterprise customers think about the shift from legacy systems to the agentic AI future. In your view, how far away are we from AI agents handling the entire customer journey?
Well, I think you've actually seen some examples already yesterday and today where that's happening. I mean, here's the really wonderful thing, is the magical part is done. I mean, these AI models, their ability to have these really natural conversations with people, the ability for them to reason very intelligently, that's all the really super hard and tricky stuff that now you get for free. The work we have to do is the kind of the nuts and bolts behind that, of how do we make sure that we're getting the right data to those systems, that we're getting the right tools for them to be able to take actions on the customer's behalf, and we've got the right governance model for our core infrastructure to be able to support that. And while that takes work, it's not rocket science. We can get there from here, and being able to connect that up to the magic that these AI engines are able to provide, I think we're actually very close to being able to have a number of great end-to-end agentic experiences.
I agree with you. And I think a second part to this question that to me is very interesting is there's also the opportunity to disappoint your clients if you don't have the data and the context meeting them at the right time and the right place. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because these chat experiences, these, quote, conversational experiences, there was a version of this that existed for a number of years with those ubiquitous chatbots on websites that I think we can be honest with each other. I mean, most of them kind of sucked.
Yes, yes.
And so what's really exciting is this generation. Again, it's because of the magic of these AI models. If we connect the right data and tools to this, the experiences, I mean, it's just orders of magnitude different than that old website chatbot that we can fully retire in the old version.
Exactly. I agree. I agree with you. So looking at this group of people, you have a number of folks in the room that may be technologists, they could be marketers, they could be working across various industries. And so you have a group of people that are curious, and they're also looking at being innovators. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here right now. So when I think about the industries specifically, the issue that to me seems like a potential challenge is that the adoption curves are different. So how would you walk us through that? If you were doing a one-to-one session with somebody here in the room and you had an opportunity to say, my advice for you is to consider X, how would you fill in that blank?
Yeah, well, I think one of the best ways to get started is to pick a path. You know, like, even if it's just like a single experience of like, okay, this path for a customer placing a particular order, or this experience where someone's trying to check in on the status of a service ticket, and being able to think not just about that traditional path, like the way, you know, we all have all these different systems in our MarTech stack, but a lot of those systems have been siloed.
Yes.
You know, and so we're used to thinking about, oh, well, there's the customer support system, and there's the CRM, and then maybe the marketing and loyalty system is over here. The thing that is so exciting about what we can do with this agentic layer that wraps around it is it actually makes it easier than ever for us to cross those silos. You know, so I think when you take a path, it's not just about like, oh, how do we get a little bit better at automating that particular experience, but how do you get the people in the room that can step back and think of like, what could we do to make this experience really amazing? Like, you know, a support ticket process isn't just a customer support opportunity. Like, what are the different ways we can take the rest of the knowledge we have about that customer relationship to go above and beyond to delight them? I think the thing that just gets me so excited about this time is I feel like we're opening the doors to a whole new range of creative opportunities and customer experience. And so I think that's the main thing to like lean in on is how do we think bigger than the traditional paths we've had?
I agree with you. And let's take a deep dive into some of the industries because I think this is quite an interesting topic. Would you agree with the statement that one industry, pick financial services or pick retail, is starting to get expectations set by a peer industry, a completely adjacent industry? What do you think about that?
You know, it's funny. I often get asked for like, oh, is there a particular vertical that I see doing a better job of this? Or even are there particular regions in the world where this seems to have caught on better? To be honest, I see most of the distribution difference between companies, regardless of the vertical or region they're
I
in,
see.
their willingness to actually lean into this innovation. And the truth is, most companies are reluctant about that. Change is hard. Change is hard. But those companies...
They are reluctant? Most companies are reluctant?
Most companies are, right. It's the companies that are willing to lean in to how things are changing that they're the ones that stand out from their peers. So I guess I would say that, you know, almost any vertical has the opportunity to be an outlier in the best of the sense. That being said, I will say some of the examples that get me most excited are around just consumer services of all kinds. Because there's so much of the cases where customers have questions, there's so much adjacent things that they actually want to get done or executed. Bringing better agentic capabilities to those services, I think just unlocks that crazy 2x2.
A lot of
so
potential.
much delight
Yes.
For the customer.
Delight, and I think for the people in this room, the chance to actually upsell the customer, to follow them through the entire customer life cycle. It changes from the top of funnel ending with a transaction and actually looks like a company cares about their customer or their client or the person that they're trying to do business with by making sure you're meeting them where they want to be and when they want to be there. We have quite a few questions coming in right now.
All right, excellent.
I can feel some buzzing happening. So
a lot of buzz.
Let's see. So number one, how is this going to impact small businesses in other regions, such as Asia, who may not have as sophisticated tools on the CRM stack? So I think about CRM. I also think about the entire ERP side of the house, too. Tell us how you think about that.
I mean, one of the things that's great about the agentic layer that we see wrapping around existing systems is that works whether you have a very small business with maybe just even a single system where you're keeping, you know, customer records, tracking orders and engagements, to much larger enterprises where it scales up often like dozens and dozens of systems, commercial, legacy, custom. The agentic layer, the beauty of it is it's a way of thinking about the interaction that can take advantage of whatever systems and data you already have behind it. You know, now, over time, as you start to get more and more value out of that agentic experience, you might think about expanding some of your back-end systems. But you don't need, I think I showed that conceptual diagram of what a MarTech stack could be.
Yeah.
If you're a smaller business, just completely ignore that slide. Even just pick your one core system that you have your customer relationships with, connect that to your agent, and then you saw some of the examples yesterday. Within the Meta platform, the ability to basically manage a lot of that experience and configure it directly there. You've got a lot of leverage you have, even if you don't have a crazy MarTech stack behind it.
It's easy to operate. It's easy to operate. I think that was a really good question. Thank you to the audience for that. Another question we have is, what should marketers stop doing and what should they start doing?
I think one of the things we need to stop doing in marketing generally is there's been an explosion of so many different channels and tactics and touch points. And one of the failure scenarios I've seen is marketers just spreading themselves too thin. They're trying to get this coverage over every possible channel, and where are we at with our email here and all. It is so much better.
Just do it all. Do it all.
Exactly, and we can't do it well, you know. And so, as a marketer, to really understand what is the one or two channels or surfaces where the majority of your customer relationship is in a position to be driven, and focus your efforts on getting that really, really right.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I've talked to a number of people here over the last couple of days where we were talking about the app experience for their brand, and then we were talking about WhatsApp as a channel. And as many of them looked at the differences that they saw in growth, they found that WhatsApp added that incremental growth to their business and didn't pull away from the app, but really pulled growth to their company and gave the customers an opportunity to have that pervasive context with them, which is absolutely critical. So another question that came in is, how do you envision the AI regulatory environment in the future? And this is an interesting one. It's probably hard for even an expert like you to predict, but I bet you have an opinion.
You know, I actually think most regulatory efforts are actually more of a friend to the marketer than not. You know, because again, it got mentioned in one of the presentations yesterday. the most valuable asset in this environment is trust. It's not just about us as marketers and businesses learning new technologies and new channels and new engagements. Honestly, it's our customers, consumers learning new channels and ways of engaging with us. And I think the degree to which there's a regulatory framework that can help provide at a societal level, some assurances of like, okay, here's how you can trust the businesses that you engage with. That's actually a friend to marketers because it really does then allow us to build on that foundation.
I like that glass half full perspective. It also allows people to spend some time focusing on AI governance a bit too, which is important for the development of systems that feed through to those conversations.
Yeah,
So,
it's funny because I've seen a few versions of this over the years, and one was like when GDPR first was coming out. A lot of concern about marketers that like, oh man, this is going to be all this work we have to do on our data, what, just for a regulatory reason? But the truth is, it became an incredible gift to so many marketers because it was the impetus to clean the data and actually make the data that they have more actionable, more reliable, more trustworthy. And that is what actually delivered a tremendous amount of value. So yeah, I'm kind of glass half full on that.
so let's take a turn and talk for a minute about talent, because this AI world requires a different type of talent at times. The people that may be thinking about how do I move very, very quickly? How do I make decisions about going left or going right? How do I think about governance? How fast do we want to go? How do I pull people along on the journey within the company so that we have the same North Star? Do we all agree on what the short, mid, and long-term objectives are? What advice would you give to this group of executives as they're building out their future and they think about talent?
Yeah, well, there's sort of like an organizational answer to that, and then there's thinking a little bit about individual careers. So from an organizational perspective, I think there's two things you can do. One is AI has just made it so incredibly powerful for small teams to have outsized performance and impact. And I think it's a great opportunity to organize small teams that are empowered to do a lot of work. And when I say a small team, it's not just like, oh, well, we've got a small team of engineers doing this. No, it's like these cross-functional teams where you're able to match up a marketer, someone from legal and compliance, someone from engineering, and being able to give them projects to run with. I think that's the other part of it, though, is one of the things that sort of came into fashion this year, and I think is now maybe falling out of fashion, thank goodness, was this idea of token maxing, of like, oh, listen, just use as much possible AI as you could, until we got the bill. At the end of the day,
that doesn't work in the customer support world, though, does it?
Well, even in almost any facet of business, just having people run in all these different undirected, vectors, it just doesn't produce results. That if you're going to have these small teams that are empowered, just giving them a real clarity of, okay, what is the mission? What are the things you are focused on? What is the outcome metric for our business or our customers that we're aligning that to? Now you're in a position where you get to harness this power, but really direct it on something that you're going to be able to get impact on, you're going to be able to measure the outcome for, and bring a little bit more efficiency to the process of leveraging all this incredible AI power.
I love it. I love it. We're going to take one more question here from the group. So this is a very good question. Are you ready for it?
All right, bring it on.
Okay. When you look at this group of people, knowing that they're going to go out and look to change the world and connect with their customers better than ever before and meet them where they're at on the channel that they want to be at and have that context and conversation, what advice do you give to them for the next 3 to 6 months? What do they go do?
I think I'm going to give two things. One is, from an architectural perspective, focusing on the data, understanding, how these different touch points and activities we want to be able to engage customers with, getting our arms around the data systems. Because for most companies, again, they've got the data siloed in all these different systems that even if they integrated, they didn't really operate as one combined system. AI gives us that ability to span across those systems, but we've got to make sure the data is in a good position, that it's clean, that it's well governed. That's a lot of work. So over the next 3 to 6 months, if I could pick one layer to focus on, it'd be like that data layer. I guess the second thing, though, is, I really loved in the keynote yesterday this like switching back and forth between what was the experience for the business and the marketer and what was the experience for the consumer and the customer. I think it's so important for everyone in the business as you're going through this transformation, to continually be in a mode of like, let's actually experiment. Let's see what this is like from the customer's point of view, to talk to customers, to bring them in, to really make sure that you're keeping in mind not just how things seem good for the business, but what experiences genuinely delight the customers. I think if you keep the customer front and center of that, that's really your North Star in how you move forward.
I love it. What a wonderful way to finish this session. Thank you so much for your time. Let's give it up for Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.